Today, we're doing a deep dive into psychological testing. And we're focusing on the approach taken by Wyndhurst Counseling and Wellness. They're based in Lynchburg, Virginia.
Right.
Our information comes mainly from their website, specifically their page on psychological testing and also the bios of Tanya McIntyre and Victor Benitez.
They're the clinicians who lead the evaluations there.
Exactly. So our mission today is pretty straightforward. Give you a clear picture of what psychological testing at Wyndhurst involves, who it's for, and what the process actually feels like.
Yeah, let's get into it.
So first off, what is psychological testing according to Wyndhurst?
Well, what's interesting right away is how they frame it. They emphasize that it goes beyond just like getting a diagnosis.
Okay.
It's really positioned as a way to get clearer answers, a deeper self-understanding, and genuinely practical guidance.
Practical guidance, meaning?
Like what to do next. They talk about these comprehensive assessments, but the key is they're tailored to what each person actually needs. It's not one size fits all.
That makes sense. So it's about understanding the why behind things, maybe, not just putting a label on it.
Exactly. They mention it aims to support, quote, meaningful growth and lasting improvement.
Yeah.
So yeah, much deeper than just a label.
Okay, that's a helpful framing. So who are the people actually doing these evaluations at Wyndhurst? You mentioned Tanya McIntyre and Victor Benitez.
Right. Let's start with Tanya McIntyre. She's a licensed professional counselor and LPC in both Florida and Virginia.
And she holds some important certifications, too. She's a certified autism spectrum disorder clinical specialist.
Okay.
And a certified clinical trauma professional. Plus, she's trained in EMDR.
EMDR, right? That's often used for trauma. And her master's degree is in professional counseling from Liberty University.
And here's a really key update on Tanya. She's actually completed all the doctoral level education and training specifically in test administration and measurements.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. And she's currently finishing up her doctorate degree in clinical psychology. The goal is to become a licensed clinical psychologist, so she's really deeply invested in this specific area of psychological testing.
That definitely highlights a strong commitment. And her expertise areas seem relevant too. Psychological evaluation, obviously, but also trauma, anxiety, depression, mood and personality disorders, ADHD, autism.
It suggests a really holistic view, doesn't it? Like understanding how different pieces might fit together for someone coming in for testing. Her trauma background, for example, could be really valuable when assessing something like ADHD.
That makes sense, seeing the whole picture. Okay, then there's Victor Benitez.
Right. Victor's also a licensed professional counselor, but in Virginia, and he's a nationally certified counselor as well.
His degrees are also from Liberty University, a bachelor's in psychology, and a master's in clinical mental health counseling.
And just like Tanya, he's also pursuing a doctorate in clinical psychology, aiming to become a licensed clinical psychologist.
So both are really advancing their expertise in this field. What stands out about Victor's background?
Well, a couple of things. He has experience with diverse populations, which is always a plus, and he's bilingual English and Spanish. That's huge for accessibility.
Definitely. Being able to conduct assessments in someone's native language is critical.
Absolutely. And his training includes a range of evidence-based approaches, things like TFCBT, which is trauma-focused cognitive behavioral therapy,
Okay.
EMDR, like Tanya, but also motivational interviewing, ACT acceptance and commitment therapy, and ACRA, which is focused on adolescents.
So he brings a toolkit that helps understand client needs from different angles using methods that are, proven to be effective.
Exactly. It shows a commitment to established practices when figuring out what's going on with a client during the assessment process.
So together, it really sounds like they offer a pretty comprehensive and tailored approach. You're getting a lot of combined experience there.
That seems to be the idea. All right, so let's dig into the actual process.
Yeah.
What does testing look like if you go to Wyndhurst Counseling and Wellness? Their website mentions 4 steps.
Yeah, they lay it out pretty clearly. Step 1 is the intake appointment.
Okay, the starting point.
Right. This is where it all kicks off. The main focus is really understanding, what brought you there, your needs, your concerns, what you hope to get out of it. And if it's for, say, school-related stuff, they suggest bringing any educational plans like IEPs or notes from teachers.
Helpful context.
Yeah. And for people coming from out of town, they can sort out the release of information forms then, too. Sometimes they might even give you some initial paperwork like self-report forms to fill out beforehand.
So that first meeting is really about information gathering and logistics. What's step 2?
Step 2 is scheduling the actual testing sessions.
Okay.
They mention it might be done in one day or maybe split over 2 days. Each session is usually around 4 hours long.
4 hours is a decent chunk of time.
It is. So they recommend bringing snacks and drinks, to stay comfortable.
Good tip.
And if it's a child being tested, parents need to stay on site during the session.
Makes sense.
They also make a really important point about medication. If you're on regular meds, keep taking them.
Oh, right. Why is that?
Because stopping them can mess with the results, make them less accurate. They specifically mention this for ADHD evaluations.
Ah, I see. So you want the test to reflect how you normally function.
Exactly. And, common sense, but
Yeah.
if you're feeling sick on testing day, reschedule. You want to be at your best.
Absolutely. Okay, so testing is scheduled and completed. Step 3 is the report, right?
Yes. Step 3 is completing all the assessments and then preparing the report. They use what they call evidence-based testing instruments.
Meaning tools backed by research?
Yeah, reliable and valid tools. They say the report usually takes about 2 weeks to finalize,
Okay.
although it could take up to 30 days sometimes. They also mentioned that getting any self-assessment forms or school forms back quickly helps keep things on track.
Right, delays can hold things up.
They emphasize that they really dedicate time to reviewing everything and writing a report that's, understandable and genuinely helpful, not just jargon.
Which is crucial. You want to actually understand the findings, so
Right.
that leads to the final step.
Step 4, the feedback session. This is where you sit down with the clinician.
And go over everything.
Exactly. A thorough review of the results. It's your chance to ask questions, get clarification, and they'll discuss recommendations, what the next steps might be. Could be treatment options, educational planning, or sometimes just the clarity itself is the main outcome.
Peace of mind, maybe.
Yeah, exactly. The goal is you leave feeling informed, supported, and clear on what the testing showed.
It sounds like a really well-structured process from start to finish, focused on the individual.
It does seem that way.
They also give a little insight into what happens during those 4-hour testing sessions. What's that experience like?
Well, they say it's paced for comfort. You're not just rushed through it.
Okay.
You get clear instructions before each task or test, and breaks are available whenever you need them.
That's good to know. 4 hours can be tiring.
Right. And they stress that it's about effort, not perfection. Try your best, but it's normal to get a bit fatigued. They expect that.
Take some pressure off.
Yeah. And like we said, sometimes there might be self-assessment questionnaires involved during the session, too.
So overall, they try to make it a supportive environment.
Seems like it.
Now, thinking about who this is all for, who really benefits from this kind of psychological testing at Wyndhurst?
They work with a really wide range of people. For kids and adolescents, it can be super helpful for figuring out challenges with learning, behavior, or development.
Like ADHD or autism.
Exactly. ADHD and autism assessments are specifically mentioned. For adults, it could be looking into mood disorders, anxiety, or adult ADHD evaluations too. Or maybe just seeking clarity, in work or personal life, understanding yourself better.
Right.
They also mention specific support for veterans and trauma survivors, assessing PTSD, emotional health stuff.
That's important.
And even for seniors, helping with personalized support as people age.
So really across the lifespan and for many different kinds of questions or challenges.
Covers a lot of ground.
Their website lists quite a few specific types of testing services. Can you give us a quick rundown? Like, what's achievement testing?
Sure. Achievement testing basically looks at academic skills, reading, writing, math performance, that sort of thing. Then they list ADHD testing, autism spectrum disorder assessments, cognitive impairment assessments that would be looking at changes in thinking or memory,
Right.
developmental and adaptive behavior assessments, how someone functions day to day, intellectual or IQ testing, learning disabilities testing, mood disorders assessments, personality testing, and even psychosis assessments.
Wow, that's a very comprehensive list.
It is. And they do say, if you're not sure which assessment is right for you, their intake team can help guide you.
That's helpful. So you don't have to diagnose yourself before you call.
Exactly.
Let's shift to some practical stuff. What about the timeline? From that first intake call to getting the results, how long does it usually take?
Typically, they say about 2 to 4 weeks for the whole process.
Okay, that's not too bad.
No. Though they do add that sometimes, for more complex cases maybe, the final report might take up to 30 days.
Gotcha. And just to confirm, they test all ages. Kids, teens, adults.
Yes, that's correct. Children, adolescents, and adults.
Okay. And what should someone actually bring to the appointment? We mentioned snacks.
Right, snacks and a drink are recommended because of the session length. They also suggest bringing any past testing records if you have them. And school reports like IEPs or behavior plans, if those are relevant to why you're there.
So anything that gives context. And the results, you get those in that feedback session, typically 2-4 weeks after the testing itself.
That's the timeline, yes.
Yeah.
Testing happens, report gets written, then the feedback session is scheduled to go over it all.
So stepping back, what really seems to stand out about Wyndhurst's approach?
I think it's that combination of a really structured, thorough process, but one that's clearly personalized.
Mm-hmm.
There's a strong emphasis not just on, finding problems, but on providing a pathway to better self-understanding and growth.
Right, that practical guidance piece again.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And all delivered by clinicians like Tanya McIntyre and Victor Benitez, who have, some serious qualifications and diverse experience.
Absolutely. So wrapping up our deep dive on Wyndhurst Counseling's psychological testing, it's clearly a comprehensive service, led by experienced professionals, designed to bring clarity and support for a whole range of needs across all age groups.
And I think what's really powerful is that potential for, genuine aha moments you mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
Getting that deeper understanding of yourself or maybe a loved one. It's more than just a diagnosis. It feels like it's about unlocking insights that can actually lead to positive change.
Well said. So as we kind of wrap up this deep dive, it feels clear that psychological testing, like the services offered at Wyndhurst Counseling and Wellness, can be a genuinely powerful tool.
Yeah, for self-discovery, for understanding. It offers a structured, evidence-based way to gain deeper self-awareness, pinpoint specific challenges.
And maybe pave a clearer path forward, right?
Exactly. And just to reiterate, our conversation today focused on the services offered by Wyndhurst Counseling and Wellness right here in Lynchburg, Virginia. And these evaluations are done in person.
Right. Their phone number is 434-237-2655.